All right. So basically, the purpose of this presentation is to discuss the current situation, where we stand with the migration of the medical examiner's card, the physicals from the DOE physical to the DOT physical, which I know we've been kind of stringing you along here for the last several months. We're going to talk about that, where we stand, where we're going with it, and what we hope is going to happen. And then also the recent outbreak, it seems, of tax collector issues when folks are going down to the tax collector's office. Again, I'm going to kind of go through the slides quickly because I do want to make sure that we are give enough opportunity for everybody to ask any questions that they might have. All right. Where do we stand on the medical card migration? The proposed rule changes were submitted several months ago. However, they have not been brought to the State Board of Education for adoption yet. Please don't ask us why. We're not sure. We're told that, oh, it's on the next agenda, but then that meeting comes and goes and it was never on the agenda. It has been completed. It has been sent on up the line. We just don't know. Once they get a hold of it, it should be pretty fast process, if they adopt it or don't adopt it. All of the proposed rules, which we're going to talk a little bit about in just a few minutes here, have an implementation date of July 1. Now, obviously, the next State Board of Education meeting is on June 24th. If it happens to make the agenda and the State Board rules on it, then that leaves about 6 days before actual implementation. When we get into talking about the medical cards and everything, I'll explain why there's not any reason to panic just because of the July 1 implementation. We're not going to go and start speculating on an approval date. We're just not. Whenever it happens and we're told about it, that's when we'll notify you all that the State Board either approved it or rejected it. Until further notice, all districts and charter schools will need to continue to use the DOE physical, okay, which is the Form ESE 479, even if it goes past the July 1 deadline. If you have not heard from us, we have not gotten the State Board to approve it, do not stop using the DOE physical. The rule is still in effect until it is changed by the State Board of Education. All right. There's 3 basic rules in the Florida Administrative Code, which is also known as the State Board of Education rules. Those 3 rules is 0141. This is the State Board of Education rule that basically identifies the responsibilities of the school bus operators in terms of their jobs providing school transportation. 0151 is the actual State Board of Education rule that requires the DOE physical for all school bus operators. It requires it. We have a rule for a DOE physical because school bus operators are exempt at the federal level from having to have a physical in the first place. We're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. And then 0171 basically addresses the school district's responsibilities for school transportation. This is where you find about conducting evacuation drills and the every 30-day bus inspections and things of that nature. There's also a small section that addresses school bus operator responsibilities within that rule that basically mirrors the 0141. All 3 of these rules have some change in some fashion that is waiting to go before the State Board of Education. I'm going to go into a little bit about what the changes are for each one of these so that you can be aware of it. We discussed it at the mid-year directors meeting with the directors, but there's a lot of folks on the call, especially a lot of charter schools, that may not be aware of it. Okay, so 0141 is the first one. This is the rule again that outlines basically the school bus operator's responsibilities. The rule is being changed to require that all school bus operators within the state meet the requirements set forth in the federal DOT medical examination requirements for commercial motor vehicle operators in accordance with the Code of Federal Regulations. Okay, the only exception to the federal requirement, okay, that is included in the submitted language is that school bus operators in the state will not be eligible for the federal waivers, or what's also called skill performance evaluation certificates for diabetes, vision, and limb impairments. Okay, this exception has always been in administrative code. It was just worded differently. It just basically stated that any waivers would have to be submitted to the Deputy Commissioner for Finance and Operations for approval, to which she has never approved any of them, if she has even received any of them. All we did now was we took that approval process out and went ahead and just put the language in there that basically says we're not going to accept it, period. That is the only part of the DOT physical that we are abstaining from. Everything else, all of the requirements at the federal level, will apply to Florida school bus operators if the State Board of Education adopts the proposed language. All of these rules and these changes were discussed at last year's FAPT summer conference, and the directors all, through matter of a vote, all the directors opted to have DOE proceed with getting these changes done. It's been a very long time in coming and a lot of work, but we're almost there. We're almost there. All right, 0151. This is the rule. This rule is being repealed. All right, this is what requires that all school bus operators have a DOE physical every 13 months that is similar to the federal physical. The rule was created because the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration regulations exempt all school bus operations from having to comply with Part 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 390.41, which specifies the DOT physical requirements. Okay, here's an excerpt that you can see from the actual regulation itself. And I've highlighted down at the bottom, exceptions, all school bus operations. Okay, and then transportation performed by the federal government, a state, or any political subdivision of a state. And school districts are a political subdivision of the state, and charter schools are, I guess for argument's sake, a political subdivision of the school district. This can all be found on the FMCSA website if you have any questions about it. All right, moving into 0171. Okay, this is the rule that basically outlines the school district's responsibility for school transportation. The rule is being changed to reflect the new requirements for school districts to use the DOT physical as opposed to the DOE physical. This includes the requirement to use a medical examiner that is registered with the National Registry of Certified Medical Examiners. Most school districts are already on board with this. We don't anticipate this being too much of an issue at this point. Because most school districts are already utilizing medical examiners on the National Registry, that is what is stemming some of the confusion at the medical examiner level between the two different medical cards, which we'll be discussing. Okay. Changes to this rule also include the repeal of the 55-mile-an-hour restriction. Okay, that's located in 0171. We've received a couple of phone calls Back in January 1, new state law took effect that basically authorizes motor vehicles to travel up to the speed limit, and there's no exemption for school bus operators. Our general counsel has indicated that state board rule cannot trump the state law, so therefore the 55-mile-per-hour restriction is being removed from the rule. Now, speed restrictions, okay, are going to still have to be set by local policy if you choose to do it. The school districts will have the ability to be able to generate a school board rule that says all school bus operators within this particular district shall not exceed 55 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour or whatever you deem to do, and make it as a matter of a condition of their employment. However, there is not going to be any administrative code, State Board of Education rule, or statute that is going to restrict a school bus operator from doing 70 miles an hour on the interstate. I would hope that common sense would kick in and that they would not go that fast anyway. So we're encouraging school districts and charter schools to take a look at what you're comfortable with, involve your risk management and legal teams, and decide what is best for your district in terms of a local policy. All right, getting into the fun stuff. What are the differences between the DOT and the DOE medical cards? The DOT medical card has 3 additional fields that are not included on the DOE medical card. A box that asks if the person has a CDL license, a box that asks if that license is intra-state, and then a box that requires the medical examiner national registry number. The DOE medical card cannot have missing fields added to it to make it a DOT medical card. You can't modify the ESE 479, the DOE medical card. It is approved by the state board. It's what's in rule, and you cannot make any changes to it. The DOT medical card cannot be used instead of the DOE medical card. Even at this moment, the requirement for the DOE medical card remains in effect and is in administrative code. This is a copy of the medical examiner certificate that most folks are very familiar with. What is causing some of the problems now that we have switched to the national, so many doctors are now on the national registry. It used to never be an issue before, but now that they're having to associate their registry number and their signature with a physical, this is what the holdup is that has been on the physical card for so long. Even though the DOE physical does not, the DOE physical is more stringent in some areas than the DOT physical. So the medical examiners are hesitant to put their signatures on the DOE card, certifying that they meet the DOT requirements and the fact that there's no place for them to record the other information that is required in order for them to be on the national registry. Okay, so that's where the hang up is coming in at the medical examiner level. All right, this is the current DOT card. And as you can see, these are here as well. Okay, this card is basically identical to the DOE card except for its layout. It also has this listed on there, a national registry number, the intrastate, and the CDL. Every other field that's on this form, on this medical card, is identical to what's on the DOE card. Okay, this is what the majority of the tax collectors' offices are used to seeing, And this is further complicating the issues when the bus operators are going into the driver's license offices or the tax collector's offices to be able to turn in their medical card. They're not accepting the DOE physical card. They're wanting this one. Okay. Now, I'm going to move. These are the two side by side to where you can see the differences. Okay, this one is missing other practitioner, and then these fields are not on the DOE card anywhere. Okay, I thought a side-by-side comparison may be of assistance to you. Now, here's the big surprise that most of the medical examiners out there are not aware of yet, that actually goes into effect on June 22nd of this year. The federal government is requiring a brand new physical form and therefore a brand new medical examiner certificate. So when and if the State Board of Education adopts the new physical and your individual folks start getting the new physical, you will either see the original DOT card or this new DOT card. Medical examiners have 6 months to implement this new medical card. So somewhere between June 22nd and December 22nd, these cards will be fully implemented. With anything after December 22nd would only be this particular card. This is what the new DOT physical card is going to look like. For whatever reason, most of the medical examiners have not been informed of this yet. So this is news to them. Some are, because I've sent them the forms that I got. We heard that this was coming. It was instrumental to us because we had submitted all the language for the new rules and referenced the old DOT physical form, medical card number, in the actual rule, and were unaware until the last minute that the feds had even changed the form and thus changed the form number up here. So we have had to make the change to our language to reflect the new form number instead of the other one that is in the rule as we originally proposed it. Okay. The other thing about that card is that districts districts and charter schools should not have to supply this form or the medical card when they send their folks to the doctors. Okay. The medical examiner that's doing the physical should have these forms on hand to be able to fill out. The actual form itself is in an electronic format that can be typed in the information or printed in and handwritten in. But the medical examiners will have this form. So when we finally do away with the DOE physical, you will no longer need to send a form with your folks. They just need to go to the medical examiner and get their physical done. They should bring this medical card back to you when they've passed their physical. All right. So now you're all educated, you get it, you understand it. What medical card do you need to have? All right, school bus operators that are employed by a school district or a charter school must have a DOE medical card in order to transport public school students. At this moment in time, that is in the rule. They have to have a DOE medical card. Okay. School bus operators who are employed by a private company to which provide transportation services for a school district and or charter school are required to have a DOT medical card because they're not government employees or a government agency and therefore not exempt under the federal regulation like a school district employee is. But then those private contractors also have to have a DOE medical card because they're transporting public school students, and Florida law requires that school bus operators transporting students have to have a physical, a DOE physical. So all the folks in Jacksonville and Santa Rosa and many, many charter schools that hire private contractors to provide their transportation services, all of those bus operators need to have both a DOE and a DOT medical card. When the DOE physical goes away, then all school bus operators will just have a DOE medical card. Okay. All right. Couple of things to keep in mind about the DOT medical card, assuming that it is going to pass. The DOT physical allows for a medical card to be issued for up to 24 months. Anybody out there who is not a director, your director should be aware of this. We discussed this last summer at summer conference. The DOE physical, as you know, allows for a medical card to be issued for no more than 13 months. A district or charter school that is going to wish to require a minimum 12-month medical card would need to do so by means of local policy. Okay, medical examiners on the National Registry, they may not be able to automatically issue a medical card for 12 months if they find no medical reason to restrict the employee. I don't know about this. What we are encouraging you to do is to talk. If your school district is going to decide that you want to maintain a 12-month or a 9-month or an 18-month physical, to talk to your provider and to ask them if that is something that they can do. I don't know with the registry what kind of auditing they're subjected to. It may be that, if they go and issue a perfectly healthy person a 12-month physical on an audit, they may be asked, well, why did you do that? Why didn't you issue them a 24-month? So keep that in mind, and you may need to have a local policy to back up the need to have a shorter physical time or shorter length of time in between physical examinations. This will also be if your medical examiner is going to certify somebody for 24 months, and at the 12-month mark, you go and tell a person, well, your physical, you need to go for a new physical, and they get testy with you, saying that their physical doesn't expire for another 12 months, you have a board policy to back up the fact that they have to have that annual physical or whatever increment you as a district or charter school decide to do. Okay? All right. So the final outcomes with regards to these rule changes. If the state Board of Education is going to adopt the proposed changes, any DOE medical card that's going to be expiring after the rule implementation date would need to be replaced by the DOT medical card issued by an examiner on the National Registry. Any new employees that are hired after the rule implementation date would need to have a DOT medical card. We know a lot of districts have gone, and just recently, yesterday, one district put all their people through the DOE physical. Those folks that went through the DOE physical will not have to worry about a DOT physical until this time next year when they go to renew, prior to the expiration date that is listed on their medical card. Okay, whether that implementation date is going to be July 1 or September 1 or October 1, whatever the implementation date is, after that point, all DOE physicals will cease to be administered and the DOT physicals will start. If the State Board of Education rejects the proposed changes, nothing is going to change, and you're going to continue to use the DOE medical card and medical exam just as we always have for the last decade. Nothing will change, and we will have all spun our wheels for no reason. Again, don't ask me, do I think it's going to pass? Do I think it's not? I don't know. It's a 50-50 chance at this point. We will let you know as soon as we hear something. I am hopeful that it will make the June 24th meeting, but that's just my hopes. I've been hopeful that it went to the federal board meeting like it was supposed to. Okay, we're going to move into the tax collectors issue now. All right. The local tax collectors are actual agents of the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, and they have been since the state closed most of their DHSMV offices due to budget restraints many, many years ago. There are several offices out there that are confused between the DOE and the DOT medical cards. We're asking that any of those offices that are confused, that you let either me know or contact DHSMV directly here in Tallahassee, and they will contact that local office and straighten them out. We've had a couple of incidences isolated to specific offices, so we're not thinking that this is a widespread problem. It's more just local offices not understanding what they're supposed to be doing. Okay. We are encouraging that when your folks do need to go to the tax collector's office, that they make sure that the agent is well aware that they are a public school bus driver and therefore exempt from the medical examiner requirement, a medical card requirement. They should also be listed in one of the two categories that exempts them, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. We've also encouraged that those employees take some kind of identification with them to signify and identify them as a school board employee or a school district or charter school employee, whether that be an ID badge, a uniform, or whatever. That doesn't always work. We had a district last week that sent a gentleman in his full school bus operator uniform, and they still did not believe that he was a school bus driver. So all we can do is try to save the trip and make sure that whatever information is needed goes with the individual when they go to the tax collector's office. All right, the self-certification categories. Most folks are aware of this, and this is where a lot of the confusion is coming in. Okay, these are the 4 categories that all holders of commercial driver's licenses need to be declared in. Most school bus operators in Florida are going to be declared or have been encouraged to declare in category B, okay, accepted interstate. This allows them to operate a commercial vehicle over state lines anywhere within the country, but that they're not required to maintain a federal medical certification because they're exempt under federal regulations. Some school districts have their folks registered in accepted intrastate category D. This basically is sending the same message that I have a CDL, I operate a commercial vehicle, but I don't operate it in a capacity that requires medical certification. However, I can't operate that vehicle beyond the Florida state line. They cannot take it out of state. Now, you can still use the driver's license portion of your CDL to drive your car out of state. You just can't take a commercial motor vehicle cross state lines, a school bus. Okay, this is particularly important for those northern school districts that border Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and those types of things where they do go cross state lines for field trips, sometimes for routes. And those individuals really need to make sure that they're in the interstate because they're crossing state lines. A and C are the categories that the private school bus contractors would need to be self-certified in. Again, A being interstate, which is in their best interest to do so. That allows them total freedom to be able to go from state to state. And then, of course, the intrastate is also same thing, just restricted to within the state of Florida or whatever state the license is issued. Okay. I do want to let you know, I'm going to get rid of my markups here. There is some uncertainty. It came up at the summer conference last year when we had the gentleman, a gentleman from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration there, in terms of the interstate and intrastate and trips, what's considered a trip. We never really got a specific answer to it, but there is in the federal law an interpretation that states that you have to be an interstate driver to provide a trip across state lines. And where the interesting thing came in is they used an example of if you have a sports team or exchange students that are coming in from Boston to Orlando International Airport, and they're coming for a couple of days, and Orange County sends school buses over to the airport to pick up those students. Well, those school bus operators that go to the airport have to be interstate because the trip originated in Boston, out of state. There was some lively discussion at conference about it. We're still really not sure what the feds want to do about that. However, furthermore reason to try to encourage your employees to select one of the interstate categories as opposed to the intrastate. Then it doesn't matter. They can do anything that they need to. Okay, what's the difference between interstate and intrastate? I talked about it a little bit here, and I don't know what's happening. Okay, oops, let's go back here. All right, interstate will allow a CDL holder to operate a commercial vehicle across state lines anywhere in the country. Intrastate's only going to allow the CDL holder to operate a commercial vehicle within the state that the CDL is issued. You cannot force a CDL holder to declare in any one category as their employer. However, they can be guided toward the interstate, which is the most flexible for them. If they're absolutely dead set on doing intrastate, they're never going to drive a school bus out of the state, then you have to allow them to declare in that category. Okay? All right. Now, I have no idea why I'm having this issue here. All right. Do you need to visit the tax collector? Okay. Prior to July 8th of this year, any new employees who have just passed the 3-part CDL exams would need to visit the tax collector office for their new CDL license. At that time, they would also need to make their declaration into one of the 4 previously discussed categories and answer a long series of questions. Okay. They're not going, they will not need to produce a medical card if they're declaring in categories B or D. But if they are declaring in categories A or C, they are going to have to produce their DOT medical card. They should not try to produce their DOE medical card because it is no longer accepted at any tax collector or DHSMV office anywhere in the state. They're not going to accept it anymore, and they're not wavering on that. This is really starting to upset me here. I'm sorry about this. I'm not sure why the computer is freezing up on me. Bear with me for a moment. Come on. Oh, we might need that extra time now. I'm going way over here. Come on. Okay. Come on. Okay. Let me see here. We're going to go up here. All right. We're just going to do it this way. All right. On or after July 8th, 2015, new employees who have just completed their written tests to obtain their commercial learner's permit would need to produce the DOT medical card prior to obtaining the permit if they're declaring in categories A or C. Any new employees who have just completed their written test to obtain their commercial learner's permit would not need to produce an MEC prior to obtaining the permit if they're declaring in category B or D. Okay. Their hiring procedures for districts and charter schools may have to be altered to include this new requirement in the CDL program. So whereas currently they don't need to do their declaration or anything until they go for their CDL license after they've taken their test, they used to just be able to walk into the office and take their exams, the 4 tests, the general knowledge, the air brakes, the passenger, and the school bus. Once they passed that, they were issued their learner's permit, which was good for 180 days, and then they would go to class. A lot of school districts, including mine when I was in the school district, we required new applicants to come to class with their their learner's permit. And then during the class, they would be sent for their physical. Well, after July 8th, they're now going to have to go for their physical prior to getting their learner's permit. So school districts and charter schools are going to need to take that into consideration, assuming that the State Board of Education is going to adopt the new proposed language. Okay. If not, they're still going to need to make their declaration prior to getting their learner's permit and self-certify in category B or D if the State Board of Education rejects the proposed changes. Okay, but assuming that it's going to go forward and that we're going to adopt the DOT physical, they are going to need to have a medical exam prior to obtaining their physical. Okay, so you want to keep that in mind as well. All right, for new employees, after the initial visit to the tax collector to obtain a new CDL, there is no reason for the employee to visit the tax collector again until they have to renew their CDL. Okay, everything can be done online through their self-certification website. For existing employees, there is no reason for the employee to visit the tax collector again until they need to renew their CDLs. If they go and get a new medical card, that new medical card can be reported to DHSMV via the self-certification website, and I've included the address down there in the next bullet point. Okay, so you should, at all cases, whenever possible, try to avoid sending your folks down to the tax collector's office. Just have them sit in front of the computer and update the information when they get their new cards. Okay, for all employees, those that are in categories A or C can update their DOT medical card information online using the DHSMV self-certification website. Those in categories B or D will not have to do anything. 3 years ago, I declared myself in category B when I had my license address changed, and I have not been back to the DHSMV since, the tax collector's office, since then, nor have I received any kind of notification that my CDL was going to be disqualified. Okay, if you're receiving notifications for your folks that their CDL is going to be disqualified, they are in the system, the DHSMV system, in either categories A or C, which is going to require the medical card prior to the expiration date that's on file. Okay, so that should be a big trigger to you if they are getting those letters. That means they're they're in the wrong category. The only exception to that is that if those individual folks need or drive part-time or on the weekends a charter bus or a tractor trailer, something that is a federally regulated vehicle, then they need to declare themselves in category A or C, and they need to use their DOT physical information to report that. Otherwise, if they are not operating a federally regulated commercial vehicle and they're only driving a school bus for the school district or charter school, then they only need to have a DOE physical at this point in time, and they need to be classified, self-certified in either category B or D, which will not require them to produce a medical card. The last slide is just the our contacts here for any future questions that you might have. Myself, Mr. McAllister, who's my boss, and then also Todd Browning. He is the CDL coordinator for DHSMV, and he's who I go to anytime we have tax collector issues. His office is responsible for overseeing the implementation of this program. And working with the federal government to ensure that they're in compliance. I want to end this particular part of the presentation by saying that all of these changes that are taking place are a result of the Federal Real ID Act that all 50 states are being required to implement. They are not the state of Florida going and saying, how can we make everybody miserable today? They're not doing this because we want to do this. All 50 states have to comply, and they're all implementing whatever method that individual state feels is going to bring the state into compliance with the federal requirements. Okay, that's all I've got for now. What I'm going to do, I know I took a little longer than 15 minutes. I apologize for that. I am going to go ahead and go down the list now. If you have any questions, please use your hand button. And I'm just going to go down the list and I will unmute you. I'll announce your name, whoever is logged in, and allow you to go ahead and ask your question. Then I'll mute you back while I make the answer, if I have one. All right, so first up, Angelo Bruselli. Are you there, Angelo? Okay, guess not. We're going to move on down the list. Mr. Carter, you're on.
Hey, Jamie, can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it just occurred to me since it's that time of year, we allow some of our buses to be leased over the summer, and some of our leasees, we allow them to hire our drivers instead of us appointing them. So it just occurred to me, does that mean that they technically or legally should have been carrying DOT cards while they're working for the other organization, say Boys and Girls Club or whatever?
Yes, because the only exemption is for state or for government employees. And
So
those,
our best bet is to not let them do that and just make them take bus and driver as working for us to avoid that.
that's probably the safest way to do it.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Mm-hmm. Diane McManus. Diane, are you there? Okay. Moving on down. I have Marjorie. Marjorie Gallion. Okay. Rachel Rodriguez. Rachel, are you there? Okay. Tracy, your hand is up, but Tracy Bodenbender, but I don't have a connection for you. an audio connection. Okay. Sneed? Theater Sneed?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Oh, the only question I have, I just want to be clear. Eventually, we're we're going to do away with DOE, and it'll just be one DOT medical exam certificate. Is that correct?
That is what the hope is. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Right now, I'm a charter with school that owns our own buses. So
Oh,
that, I just want to be in compliance.
okay, so your folks should all have a DOE physical.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Right.
when the state board adopts it and the implementation date rolls around, then you would need to switch over to a DOT physical by
Right.
a physician, a medical examiner on the National Registry. Yes, ma'am.
Pretty much doing that now. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey,
Barbara Shaw.
all right. I'm in the middle of a.
Yes, we have one question.
Barbara Shaw?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. The question is, if this does get passed, just confirm the physicals that need to be completed before the permit. Is that just for A and C, or is that for all A, B, C, and D?
No, that's just going to be for the DOT physical because that's all that the tax collectors and DHSMV care about.
Correct.
So that
But
is
if
assuming that the State Board of Education is going to adopt the proposed language and the DOT physical, at that point, then it would be applicable. But as long as we're still using the DOE physical, that is not applicable. They will
Okay,
make their
but
declaration they will declare themselves in B or D at the time that they are obtaining their learner's permit, but they will not have to produce a medical card. Yes, sir.
okay, so the medical card, if they choose B or D, will not have to be produced before getting the permit.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's see if anybody else is on here. Okay, Angelo, I see that your hand's still up. Are you with us yet? Okay. Well, in that case, I don't have any more hands up. So I thank you all for your time. If you have any further questions, please send me an email. And you can obtain the recording will be on the YouTube channel linked through the FAPT website on the right side, the left-hand side of the homepage at faptflorida.org. You'll see where it says recorded presentations. And that should be, this presentation should be up there later on this afternoon. If there's anything I can do to help you, please don't hesitate to give me a call and or an email. And I thank you for your time. Everybody have a great day.